Good afternoon. All right, we have two persons online. Let me introduce Puan Junnaina. Yeah, she is the Director of Planning and Research at the Manpower Department, Ministry of Human Resource. She has risen up the ranks, joined as a mechatronics instructor in 1997. Still you look very young. Dr. Vincent Kwok, Director of Fairview. Interesting, he's a medical graduate from Manchester University and was a psychiatry registrar. Obviously shows a very strong passion for education, for having moved into education. Mr. Sean Chua, I think you're online? Yeah, okay. Executive Director of International Chamber of Commerce and Industry, a chartered accountant by profession, and has been CEO of EXI Telecoms, CFO for Ericsson Malaysia, and U Mobile. So has seen industry quite a bit, now representing the chambers. And of course, we have Professor David Whitford. Yeah, I think we also met on Saturday morning. Yeah, and CEO and Registrar of RCSI and UCD Malaysia campus, formerly known as the Penang Medical College. Interestingly, David is trained as a family physician, practiced for 16 years in Newcastle upon Tyne, and has gone into education again, just like Vincent, shows very strong passion for education. Yeah, this is what it takes to improve education, people from industry getting into it, yeah, rather than career academics. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for that. To start with, I think I was supposed to set the scene by saying a few words, but instead I've broken tradition a little bit. I have some slides to show, and maybe that's the way we can kick it off. Now, I've taken this from the World Economic Forum, and which states that the pace of technology and IR 4.0 is expected to accelerate faster due to the pandemic, and I think we all know this. And with this have come development of the buzzwords of big data, AI, cloud computing, e-commerce, cybersecurity, and so forth. This period is seen to be a double disruption scenario for workers due to rapid automation. Double disruption because the technology disruption was taking place, although at a slower pace, but now with the pandemic, it's a double disruption. So there's acceleration of job destruction now, and WEF, World Economic Forum, thinks that 85 million jobs will be displaced by 2025 to be replaced by 97 million new jobs. You know, based on this data alone, it diffuses the fallacy that there are going to be less jobs. Actually, there are going to be more jobs, but of a different kind. Skills gap will continue to be high due to change in skills and demand. And the prevalence of remote and hybrid work requiring new workforce capabilities obviously is taking center stage right now. Yeah? And the future of work is already here, brought forward by the pandemic. So the pandemic has actually accelerated the change that was taking place, although slowly, but now heavily accelerated. Now, we also know from the Malaysian context, if we are to put this in context, the major COVID impact is really on F&B, aviation, travel, tourism, retail, and we have to explore new technologies that are sustainable, inclusive, and make sure our economy is resilient. And we have been talking about fourth IR, fourth industrial revolution, and the technologies that include robotics, machine learning, etc., and significantly altering the way consumers think, and which is forcing businesses to operate in response to changes in consumerism. Yeah, and that's something I said this morning too. And we know that with the advent of the Malaysian digital economy blueprint, what we are trying to do is to create a sustainable digital economy and enhancing value creation, yeah, going up the value chain. Now, just very quickly, since we are talking about jobs today, WEF actually published where there's increasing demand and where there is decreasing demand. I'm not going to go through each one of this, but it is there to give you a flavor that demand is increasing exponentially for so many jobs that should have come up slowly over the next 10 to 12 years or 15 years, but now they're becoming apparent and immediate because of the pandemic and the changes that have taken place. Yeah? But at the same time, you can also see that jobs that will be disappearing, you know, and there are many more. They're not just 20, but there will be decreasing demand of a number of jobs. Yeah, and in the computing area, especially emerging jobs. Yeah, many of these titles have not really been seen in the field yet. You know, we are an emerging economy. We are not a fully developed economy. It'll take some time because before we mature up to seeing a lot of jobs with those kind of titles. But you see, this is what's happening now. And the nature of jobs now is such that you do not have to have a degree to be a specialist. Yeah, employers are really looking for specific skills. And big giants like Microsoft and Google and Huawei, they are beginning to take people specifically for their skills and competence in certain areas rather than look at their degrees. So there is a departure from this, and those who are graduating, they better be graduating with strong specializations, otherwise they're going to be left high and dry. Yeah. Now this looks like a web, but really what it is showing is the type of people on the left and how they will map on to the new jobs in the future. I mean, the broadest band up there is engineering on the left. It actually says that they will be able to adapt themselves into a number of jobs rather than a lot of people at the bottom where you see the lighter lines, yeah? Healthcare, legal, purchasing, those are the lighter ones. They have less opportunities to transform into something else. Top 15 skill sets, just to round this up, it is not just competency that's required, it's just not knowledge that's required, it's not just degrees in certain fields, but there are personal attributes that employers will be looking for, and the new jobs and jobs of the future actually are calling for a concentration of these attributes, yeah? Plus self-management attributes, mindfulness, gratitude, and kindness. You know, our former Minister of Higher Education, Mazli, yeah, popularly known for something else, but he was propagating these values, and he was a little ahead of his time when he was talking about mindfulness, gratitude, and kindness, yeah. At that time, people did not appreciate what he was saying, but empathy seems to be a big trait that's required in employees today. If you want to manage Gen Ys and Gen Zs beyond the millennials, then these are the qualities that managers must come with. It's not going to happen otherwise. Yeah, those guys get motivated by quite different things. Gen Zs, when we talk about jobs, when we talk about the education system, we must also talk about the people we're educating. Yeah, Gen Zs, the ones who are typically born after 1998, are joining the workforce around now. They are digital natives. They are a different breed of people. So when we talk about jobs of the future, is that meant for me? Yeah? Okay, all right, okay. So, all right. I will not get into this now. I think this is going to be the nature of discussion that we are going to have. Yeah? Is our system of education robust, agile enough in order to address the rapidly changing nature of jobs of the future, the needs of the students and employees of the future? What sort of ecosystem should our universities create to enhance employability? Will Malaysian graduates have what it takes to compete, survive in the highly disrupted future world? What role would the government need to play? Yeah, these are all fundamentally key challenges. Okay, sorry, minta maaf. If I may now ask the panel speakers to also pitch in, yeah? And then we will go into a more interactive session in a little while, yeah? Okay, can we start with you? Yeah, okay.
I better put on my own timer. I'll get dinged out. So hi everybody, my name is Dr. Vincent. A big thank you to Tan Sri for inviting me to speak, to Dato Jean, to all the great guys at KSI who've invited me to share my thoughts on this. Really enjoy being here every year and really enjoy listening as well. A big shout out to the Fairview team who's here as well, and my dad's over there in the corner, guy in the white hair. So if I say anything wrong, blame him, okay? So that's it. I thought, you know, you guys have just been through a pandemic. You guys got stuck at home. You've been listening to Zoom all this time, so I'm not going to come in with slides. I am instead going to entertain you with my voice. I'm a psychiatrist, so be careful. So what do we need for the future? I'm going to tell you a story of what I went through as a new educationalist. And then when you hear it, I'm going to tell you what we did to sort this out. I first came back to the school and I started teaching, and it was tough. I had read more books than I'd ever read in medical school because I had imposter syndrome. It's like this doctor comes into a school and tries to teach, and all these teachers with degrees are so much smarter than me. So I read everything there was. And I thought that really was all there was to education. And then I started the IB diploma program, and I did the right equation. I got scholars in. IB diploma, by the way, is a tough program. I brought in scholars, the best of the best, the number 2 in Hwa Chong. I had number 1s and number 2s. And we brought in the best teachers we could find, high qualifications. And we put them together, and they didn't do very well. They did quite badly. That goes to show that what I want to try to tell you is an equation doesn't work, right? The known equation isn't what's going to work for our future. It never did in the past. We're bluffing ourselves to think that there is an equation to walk forward into the future even. There isn't an equation, and that's the first thing we need to let go of. I'll tell you what worked. The first thing I did was I changed the teachers into new graduates teaching a college degree. Now that's scary. New graduates who were zesty and fiery. First change, massive. Or the results went from an average of, we call it points out of 45, 32 points out of 45 to 34 points. We're like, what happened over there? And then the next things we started doing, we started teaching them about family. Oh, no, we didn't teach them about how to study first. We taught them about family, guys. Love one another, family, take care of each other. And then the results went up to 36. And by the way, 36 is very high. Currently, our average stands at 37.3. Fairview International School currently holds the top IB diploma score in Malaysia. We were awarded the best IB diploma school in Malaysia and one of the top 50 IB schools in the world. And we know what actually got there. It wasn't an equation, funny enough. But that's what we do. And if you're going to go about trying to help the students of tomorrow by just doing stuff at them, that's not going to work. You got to ask yourself, what do they need? Now, I was looking at the slides from Professor just now, and I was quite amused. One of the slides said entrepreneurship was right at the bottom of that slide, and it couldn't map into any of the future jobs. But I think that's a little bit of a fallacy, because the point of learning entrepreneurship is not to get into a job in the first place. So that slide, I think, is slightly flawed there. But you can't teach for the future. The moment you teach somebody coding, by the time they get out, they've got a limited lifespan and they're on to the next thing. You try to teach them that, there's a limited lifespan and they'll get on to the next thing. Guess what? You're not teaching them to be foolproof, you're teaching them to chase a trend. And so long as we keep that mentality of chasing nonstop, you're going to be 2 steps behind everybody else. So this is my suggestion. Stop teaching them what they should learn. Teach them how to learn. Stop teaching them or telling them what they need to do, and develop a sense of personal ownership. Develop a sense of personal leadership. You know, I really love the CEO for Teach for Malaysia's score framework for leadership. I thought it was fantastic. Because that's the one thing that we need tomorrow. We don't need more bureaucrats. We don't need more technocrats. There's a ton of people that can do that. Where we can, if possible, we need to develop leaders. People who take ownership, leadership in their life, leadership for others, and to lead change. I stole that from your score, by the way. Guys, Teach for Malaysia, so well done over there. I'm a good student too. How do you develop that? It's not difficult. 1, develop the right environment. Seeds don't grow by shouting at them, period. You cannot shout at a seed and make it grow. 2, explicitly teach leadership. There is a skill, there is a science, there is knowledge. Harvard, go to the Harvard school, don't go to Harvard, my dad went to Harvard. Go to INSEAD, they have better research papers over there. That's my school. Read the leadership. It's so easy to read nowadays. And then give them opportunities to lead. Now, I'll tell you in the very little time that I have, what did we do? 1, I did it so cheesy. We have 3 values. I repeat these again and again. Family, safety, and positivity. If any of you have read, there was a research by Google that talked about psychological safety being the #1 key driver of performance in the workplace, you'll smell very quickly that these 3 words lead directly to that. Family, safety, positivity. We work on these 3 core values in our school to create the right environment. Be gardeners, people, not carpenters. Kids don't need you to chip away at them. They don't need you to polish them down to become diamonds. They need to grow into trees. We got to change that mindset. The second one is, in our school, I only have half a minute, I'm going to do it fast. Everybody in corporate knows that the highest ROI you can get out of any training program is executive coaching. But it costs $2,000, 2,000 ringgit per hour to coach a guy. So only the CEOs and the top guns get it. But wait a second, the ones who actually need it, that's everybody else. Why is it so expensive? If you know the business, you know it doesn't actually cost that much. These coaches don't need 2,000 to live. They're just charging that to inflate prices. It's called value pricing and marketing. It's terrible. What we did, we took coaching. I sent my wife on a coaching course, and then I stole all the material, and I read every bit of it, and I dissected and asked myself, is this actually that difficult? No, it isn't. Then I taught my counselors how to coach, created a system, and all Fairview students from grade 5 up to IB diploma are coached for 6 months of every year, once a week in a group coaching session. They're taught how to set goals, align their purpose towards goals, plan ahead, fail repeatedly, and keep on moving forward. And on top of that, because they're in a group, they support each other while they're at it. Now, isn't that called leading others? Now you're smelling it. The first part is how do we lead ourselves? Now we're leading others. And the final one is creating student voice and agency. And this is a massive part of the IB program. When you learn something, at the end of every unit that we teach, the kids say, what are you going to do about it now that you know about it? I mean, the classic example is smoking. If you know your uncle is smoking, what are you going to do about it? With great knowledge comes great responsibility. And we teach that to our kids to take action repeatedly, and they'll fail. They'll fail the first 100 times. But if you know how to maintain safety, they will eventually succeed. You teach your kids these things. You develop children in personal leadership, and I guarantee you, I'll tell you what's going to happen. They will come out from school, and they will be able to smell where they need to go. You don't need to tell them, go into coding, go into AI, go into this, go into that. No, 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 no. That's the stuff they will research on Google by themselves. That's easy stuff. Because they will have the intuition, the research skills, the motivation to figure out what they should do, and then they will go and do it by themselves, and they will pivot and pivot and pivot. I'm a doctor, and I'm now an educator. I'm a classic example of pivoting. Most of the people, I think I read a HR report that said 90% of the graduates in our world today will change 5 jobs by the time they hit 32. 5 jobs, okay? Now, how many times do they need to pivot, and do we ever teach them how to pivot? And are they pivoting correctly, or can we teach them to pivot in the right direction each time so they are closer to their goal? Stop telling them where their goal is and teach them how to pivot towards it constantly. And there you have a graduate, an educated child, an educated youth that will surely succeed in today's volatile and uncertain world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vincent. Very interesting. This is development more at the K-12 level, yeah, children at their infancy and before they get into higher education. Before we discuss this any further, I would like to call upon Puan Junnaina here to give us a perspective from the ministry's angle, especially the planning side of things here, as to how you see things developing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato'. Dear participants, I would like to start. Can I have my slide? Okay, so since Dr. Vincent mentions about K-12, I would like to take from the other perspective on the TVET training. So I'm from the Ministry of Human Resources under Manpower Department, and 20 years of my service I serve in the training institutes. So as Dr. Vincent, I started off as a chemical engineering, and then I ventured to mechatronics, and now I do research and planning in TVETs. Okay, so can I have, oh, sorry. So the problems that's mentioned by Dato' moderator as well as Dr. Vincent is about mismatch problem, and that is the main thing that we would like to solve currently. And also in the keynotes just now, Dato' Pramli just mentions about robotics, AI, and also automation as a threat to us currently, causing the shift in job demands and also losing jobs in the future. Okay. So referring also to the World Economic Forum, I would like to actually bring your attention to the importance of creativity. Previously it was number 10, and now it has gone up to number 3. That shows a big jump from number 10 to number 3 as the importance of the future skills that our future leaders or future workers needed. And at the same time, you can see that the critical thinking from number 4 has gone up to second skills that needed. We also see the emergence of new skills, which is emotional intelligence. So if Dr. Vincent mentions about family, it's about love, about the passions. This has been stated in the World Economic Forum as one of the future skills that needed by our future workers, emotional intelligence. And another emerging skills will be the cognitive flexibility. How can a person move from one skills to other and get ready with the new skills as the time goes? This is also about the 21st century, talking about communications, talking about collaborations, about critical thinking, and again, creativity. So when we talk about communications, we are actually referring to the skills, how can they share. As you know, these generations, as the Z generations are techno-savvy. Most of the time, they are very individualistic. They do things individually, do with the machines, with the gadgets. So sharing information, communication skills is very essential, is very critical to them. They can do their jobs very good, but then to communicate, it's something that they need to learn. Collaborations, to work together. They are so used to work with the machines that to work with other personnel becomes a problem to the new generations, and this is a big problem to company because most of the work they don't do individual. They have to do together with other people, and with the new skills needed, with the new revolutions, there is no one person who can complete a job. It's always a combination of skills, so collaborations is a big thing for the future skills. And critical thinking, so to have a good reason, to be able to see things from different perspectives, that is one of the skills that needed, and we should train the new students who are going to work, future workers with these skills. Okay. Talking about creativity, I would like to actually bring you to the IR4, where one of the pillar is new model, to create new business, to create new activities, to create new products. So these are things that need a lot of creativity, where students need not to only integrate whatever skills and knowledge that they have currently, but they also need to come up with the new things based on the information that they have, and that's where comes the big data analysis and you name it. Okay, so what is the trend of the future industry that we are talking about? If I may summarize, it's basically about customizations and also personalizations. Do you go to coffee shops that you can actually customize your coffee, right? You would like to have your own combinations and to suit you. Even now you have a makeup, you have a foundation that you can actually make to the shade of your skin. So that is the way the business will come in, the new model of the business of the future. So how do we actually prepare our future our students for the future job? Okay, personalization. Now you can see more and more bakery store. They don't sell off-shelf cakes, but you have to pre-order. You can customize each cake to your preference, to your own decorations, to your own flavors, mix and match. Even if you talk about cheese tart, you know, it's all custom-made. So that is the way the people are living right now. They would like to personalize. Even you have your own personal organizer. You would like to have your name on it, or your picture on it, your own logo on it. So those are actually things that's coming in, and the future of the business, and the future of the skills that needed for the future. Okay, so how do we actually fix this at JATM or Manpower Department, Jabatan Tenaga Manusia? We focus on the core. Okay, so the one in the gray color, that will be the core. So we give them all the needed. If you build a house, okay, what's most important will be the foundation. So if you have a strong foundation, whatever that you put on top of it, it comes after that. Okay, so you need to have a strong foundation, strong piling, strong beams, so that you can actually build a good buildings and a nice building. So the nice building is what we add in after the training, specialized skills, added values, as well as internal quality that we want. Okay, if the company wants. So we focus on the gray. Then if the company wants anything special for the company, we custom made it later. Okay, so fixing it, we have the box. And then if the company say, no, I do not want these skills, please reduce it, fine, we'll chop it off. If you think that we need to enhance, so we will actually add it on and make it elongate. Okay, from the existing. So IR4 is about multi-skilling and about cross-skilling, and customized courses, customizations of the content is the way of future skills. Okay, so critical thinking is one thing, how you can see the same object but from a different way. Is it an M or is it a W? Okay, so this is a fact since the bell is, I got the first bell. So the next model which we should go is actually the 10, 20, 70 models, which is under executive development. We only train them about 10% of the content, and the rest of the 20% they learned from their peers. Okay? So from the peers, that's where people say, if I go to the previous one, people actually spend 30% of their time during work time to learn new information or to search information to meet their requirement. Okay, so that's the 20% of it. Now, the 70%, the remaining of the 70% is on-job training. So as I am, was trained academically, background as a chemical engineering, but most of the time where I learn my skills right now is on the job training. Okay, the practical, all the experiences I gained during my work time. So that's 70% of it. So we actually have a models where company can actually customate their programs. So we teach them the core. The specialized, we can actually add ins to the additional programs, and then to make up further, okay, to put in more accessories on the students. They can come up later for reskilling and also upskilling, especially on the new emerging skills. Okay, so thank you. So that's for the first round. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan, Junnaina. I think Junnaina has given us a perspective of new skills and also introduced the element of emotional intelligence as an upcoming thing, and talked about how skills development can be handled and how it can be administered. So at the moment, I would still keep our colleague from MICCI last, because I think it'll be useful to get Professor David's input from higher education after Dr. Vincent and Junnaina has spoken, and then we'll move on to seeing what the employer base says. Yeah, so David, can I call upon you to share some of your thoughts?
Yes, thank you very much. And adding to what previous speakers have said, we are indeed going through an industrial technological revolution and a massive information revolution. But one of the things we need to be careful of is the terminology we use. Certainly the industrial revolution that took place in the 19th century took about 100 years, and I think things have accelerated massively since that time in terms of the change, and the pace of change has changed. But some of the changes we're seeing in terms of jobs and so on have actually been happening for quite a long while. And they're going to be happening for a long way into the future as well. So there's nearly a sense in which it can be sexy talking about revolution and what the actual definition of revolution is, a sudden and very important change in the way people do things. But it's a progressive thing, and it has been happening over a very long period of time, and we need to realize that. But even though I maybe don't believe that this change is occurring quite as suddenly as is sometimes put across in the media, in the background, there's still a reluctance to embrace the fact that this change is occurring. And that reluctance occurs in many arenas. And it's not absent in universities. And what I'm going to be sort of talking about briefly is just, what universities are doing about this. And even in my own area of medicine, there's massive advances in technology that have taken place that would improve diagnosis and treatments. An example is the use of AI in detecting cancer cells on cervical smears, a really definite advance that would, alongside the expertise of cytologists, would make a great difference to the diagnosis. But it's still not widely adopted in all medical centers across the world. Another example from my own experience now in medical education is the use of some really outdated modes of equipment. We still teach medical students to listen to a baby's heart during pregnancy through this instrument called a PINARDS, and it's still taught in medical schools, even my own, I'm embarrassed to say, even though Dopplers, which are a very simple and cheap instrument, are much more effective at actually hearing the heart. And another instrument called an ophthalmoscope, which you'll have mostly all heard of, used to look at the back of the eye or the retina. When research has been done on doctors' use of this, we know that about 80% of doctors are not competent in using this instrument. And nowadays, there are smartphone apps which are very effective at taking a picture of the back of the eye that you can actually look at and see, and yet that technology is hardly taught in medical schools. So there's something, as has been mentioned by the previous speaker, a mismatch in education between what's happening and so on. So, as I said before, the majority of people, ourselves sometimes included, have a resistance to change, and behavioral change is a major thing and something we need to do. But when we look particularly at universities, much of the delivery of education in universities is out of date. Not even in line with some modern educational theories, never mind in terms of what society needs. Teaching is still too didactic, as has been mentioned. Why should our student be taught masses of knowledge when you can actually find it on your smartphone in seconds? And we do this in medicine, and we expect people to remember it and then regurgitate it in examinations. And why is that the case? In the latter part, I believe in the latter part of the 20th century, and certainly into the 21st centuries, universities did lose their way to an extent, and they turned from institutions that were there to teach students how to reason, how to think, how to develop themselves and others, into institutions that thought that they were going to prepare students for a job. And that is a big mistake that happened. And universities are not there to prepare people for a job. As we've heard already, people are quite often entering the workplace and switching their roles and their responsibilities and their jobs frequently during that period of time. And additionally, many of the people that were based in universities hadn't worked in industry, they hadn't worked in healthcare in my instance, they hadn't been entrepreneurs. And the criticism that then came from the workplace, even in areas such as medicine and law, which are fairly reactionary, static institutions, is that the education system of today is still far too focused on the theoretical rather than developing the real problem-solving skills that people need in this day and age. Many of our top graduates arrive into their first job with reams of theoretical knowledge, but no real life skills, the sort of emotional intelligence, the empathy, the communication and so on that is actually needed for the jobs of today. And our universities are really failing still to produce those young pioneers and entrepreneurs of the future. So, in terms of answering some of the questions that are asked, have universities defined the syllabuses of the future? I'd say largely no. Have they defined the workplace of the future? I'd say largely no. Are they preparing students for the jobs of the future? And I'd say, again, largely no, not entirely. Universities are still following societal trends rather than leading the way. And this is not new. It's difficult to make predictions about jobs of the future. And the changes sometimes occur faster than universities can actually adapt to and respond to in supplying the graduates. And we largely to a large extent, although they don't see themselves as such, universities are still largely reactionary sort of organizations. But we can see that changes are occurring. So occupations that rely on people skills are increasing faster than average. For example, employment in my own area of healthcare and social assistance has increased by over 20% in the last 10 years. So there's more jobs appearing in those areas. They're unlikely to be completely replaced. There's lots of technological developments that can assist, but they're not going to be replaced entirely by things like AI and computer diagnosis and so on. Jobs in finance have increased in the same time frame by much more amounts. And then the massive increase, of course, that we've seen is jobs in engineering, technology, sustainability that are increasing massively. So when it comes to universities and what their role is, I would say that the need is for a greater clarity as to what universities are actually there for. And they need to fully realize their role in facilitating students to learn, as Dr. Vincent was saying earlier, in schools, our role is not to pour knowledge into individuals, but to develop them into good learners. Students who can reason, who can critically think, and then their role is to partner more closely with industry to enable industry to develop training for the jobs of the future. So in most cases, I think a broad general education may be what is needed in many interesting instances. A return to some of the humanities subjects, which actually do teach some of these skills, but they're largely dying out in universities, and our commerce degrees and the like, engineering degrees. And that's going to provide young people with a range of capabilities that may be as or even more relevant to this changing economy than occupationally specific degrees. And this is where industry partnerships with universities come to the fore. We, as universities, need to be training for occupationally specific roles. We need that to be best done on the job, in industry, in healthcare, in all those settings, as opposed to thinking that the academic setting of a university can ever prepare people for those jobs. I believe universities, as I've said, need to really rediscover this core purpose, encouraging the learning, research, development of broad critical thinking and reasoning, and leave industry to deliver the occupation-specific training. In my opinion, we need more work experience for young people and opportunities for young people to work not just at one, but a variety of different startups, businesses, giving them hands-on experience in lots of different sort of experiences. So I'm not sort of suggesting that universities have had their day. What I am suggesting is that universities need to really get back to the core sort of thing of teaching students how to learn, how to develop themselves, and to interact with industry in order to actually provide the on-job training that people actually need. So the aim of university should be employability, not employment. And this means in developing individuals who are self-directed, agile and adaptable, and who are global citizens in a global environment. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That's a very refreshing narrative that you've got there on what the universities should be doing. Very interesting. You talked about not teaching trends, and that's the same thing Dr. Vincent was talking about, that if they're trying to do that, being reactionary organizations, they will never be able to keep up. So they're always behind time. So that will be a wasted effort. There are lots of views about what universities should be, but we can see that you definitely support the humanities side of things, which is naturally dying because people are not finding direct jobs there, but they tend to actually lose out on the humanistic elements. Yeah, that's very interesting. Sean, you have heard three speakers with various views. You obviously represent the industry, the employer side of things. What is your take on what you've heard so far? Thank you, Sean.
Right, thank you, esteemed panel and Dato, everyone. MICCI is one of the oldest chamber in Malaysia, 184 years old. So we have gone through 2 world wars, pandemics and stuff. So we have thrived, we have adapted, and we survived. Okay. We also collectively look after about 325,000 employees. So we know what we want when we hire. So all the distinguished panelists have actually quite hit it on the dot about Puan Junnaina's 4 C's, correct? The creative thinking, the critical thinking, the Dr. Kwok's leadership, problem solving, Professor David, very good. It's universities for employability rather than employment. Yeah, so that's very accurate. Now, I would like to, from the business perspective, we are very pragmatic people. So we will try to explain all these things into what employee looks for in a very simplistic point of view. So for the audience to really understand where it is, what is the employers looking for. Okay, I'm a technologist. I've worked in many companies, and I've also employed a lot of people, and these are some of the things that we want to. Okay, and the first thing I want to say is that do not fear technology. Change is inevitable, and what Professor David has said, the Industrial Revolution is years and years, decades and 1,000 years ago when it started. We have evolved. Okay, do you know that the big data analysis seems to be a big word now? We have been practicing it for more than 1,000 years. Do you know that? So that's why you have not feared. You know what? Before we got married, before we moved to a new house, some of us will consult the stars, okay, and see whether it aligns. What is your birth date and stuff like that? This is called the feng shui or baji in the Chinese point of view. This is a combination of thousands of years of observation of the stars, the environment, outcomes, the recording, the analysis, so that's what big data is all about. Okay, now it's just move faster with computer, and we have adapted to it, and we have used it. The first users of it is an almanac. It's just to let the people know when do you start planting, when do you harvest, stuff like that. So by looking at the seasons and the stars and stuff like that. So that is the technology or the big data. Right now, where the jobs are and the people that uses it. So you get the shamans, the pomos, the oracles that reads these almanacs and then predicts and tells people, all right, it's going to be a good harvest. No, it's not going to be a harvest, and what you can do to prevent a bad harvest. So these are the people that is going to be of high skill. I mean, this is a skill that is demanded. Okay, so therefore the education system should be in that, not about teaching the process of, let's say, to be simplistic, the 2 + 2 = 4, right? It's not about the 2 + 2. It's about the creative thinking, the critical thinking, the ability to interpret results, to be able to give a solution to the result. Okay, in a simplistic point of view, let's give you a candidate for employment, right? So the first candidate comes across, and of course the business will ask, what sort of value would you bring to the business? Okay, now understanding that if a graduate is taught these sort of expectation by the businesses, as what Dr. Kwok has said, you can smell, and when you smell, you know what you need to do. Okay, so it's not about teaching the 2 + 2 skills. Okay, right. So when you ask the first candidate, what is your contribution that you can bring to the company? And this first candidate will say, oh, I know how to add 2 + 2 give you 4. Okay, so that is that candidate I have a problem with, and it is quite prevalent in the employment, the graduate market today. They only know how to do the 2 + 2 = 4. And that's where the skills mismatch is. I mean, this is not. Okay, then when you go to the next level, the guy will say, 2 + 2, AI or technology will give me the answer. Just like what Professor David says. It's all in there. You can Google it, right? Okay, the difference is that you must be able to distinguish fake and real. Okay, so what is then that little extra that gets you hired is that the answer is 4, and let me show you what you can do with the 4. Now that is what gives you that edge of employability, the ability to critically think, creatively think how to use the 4 to help a business solution provider. Leadership. Yeah. Now, it's something which might be interpreted wrong way, but it's happened now. The third scenario would be, I mean, there's a joke behind it, but the third scenario would be is the guy says 2 + 2, okay, fine. AI and machine will give you that answer, but what answer do you want? That is where the big bucks is. This is what every employer will look at. The answer may not be 4. Okay. Now, to demonstrate that, you're talking about people like Grab, the disruptors, the food pandas, Alibaba. Okay. Alibaba is a shopping mall, but it doesn't own little shops. It doesn't own stock. Grab, it's a taxi company, but it doesn't own taxis. Oyo is a hotel business. Airbnb is a hotel business, but doesn't own hotels. So that is what I mean by 2 plus 2, not necessarily 4, if you can change it. So these are the very high ability to think. If you are able to break the rules and change and disrupt, this is where the future of the jobs are. And this is the future where businesses look at in employability, because the business is a sustainable entity. It lives by perpetuity. So it always looks for people who is able to transform and to sustain the business. So that's where it leads to. So again, the education has to change. Technology is transparent. It does not discriminate. Do not, for 1 second, try to politicize education. That's important. Once you do that, then it does not serve any purpose, right? Okay. Now, in conclusion, you do not necessarily have to still invent the wheel or reinvent the wheel. It's about knowing how to use the wheel, okay, in many places. So that's, once a student masters that knowledge, then everything, like Dr. Kwok says, you smell, you know what to do, okay? Whatever you lessons you learn in university or where anything in life, that is your guiding light. Now, there is a lot of other stuff which needs to also be addressed, okay? Now, before I go into the challenges, there is some possibility other than a very technology driven roles. There is also things like agri and agro. This is the farming. People still need to eat. It is not backward anymore. I mean, with technology, you can complement it. There's still skills there. I mean, there is still things which is creative that you can create and grow stuff, right? And this one is very difficult for technology to be able, or AI, so to speak, to be able to mimic and do, because this is something very human. Then there is the arts and the entertainment industry, the creative. This is the real creativity that I wouldn't say AI can't do. AI will take a while to overcome the human part. Okay, so it is an example of a architectural industry, right? It's all set of rules. You want it this way, you want this that way, and then you calculate the load bearings and stuff like that. So this can all be AI driven. But what distinguishes a good architectural student is his creativity. He's able to challenge the modeling that AI will do to create I don't know, a building that is balanced on a nail or something like that, you know, to be able to challenge that. So that's where the essence of the future job is. Now, challenges, of course, challenges starts with education, right? The education has to be pivot to be able to have the foundation for students to be able to critically think, to be creative. Language skills is also very important, because that's how you either communicate or learn, right? If you are handicapped by a lack of skill in a language, it also holds you back, right? There's also something which is attitude and work discipline. This is where we are seeing a problem with. Okay, you can be highly skilled, you may have 50 degrees and masters and stuff like that, but if your attitude and work discipline is not there, it's that I have 50 degrees and I can calculate 2 plus 2 for you. It's something not what we want to. We need to have your ability to value add to a business. The last part of it is what the Puan Junnaina is doing is the TVET. Now, you have to overturn a taboo. The taboo is TVET low class. Only people who can't go to university or study ends up TVET. Oh, okay, mechanic, no good. Or even manufacturing. The job might be a data scientist, very high data scientist, in the manufacturing industry or manufacturing. But then the taboo is, oh, you work for manufacturer, yeah, low class. You better work in the office better, you know? So that narrative has to change, that mindset has to change. And in order for you to change that, it comes from way down in the primary education all the way up into even parents and the attitude to it. It's not negative, you know, it is about what your passion is. So that's what makes a good employee, and that's what makes you employable. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I can say. Back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Very interesting perspective. Really, I think, you know, all of you are literally on the same page. You know, how the kids have got to be developed, and then David's suggestions about what universities should be, and finally, Sean, how employers look at things, and even Junnaina's views on how training should be done. So very interesting. Thank you so very much, everyone. But we are now opening up for Q&A. We would like any of you who have any suggestions or questions to ask the panelists. There are mics around. Anyone? We have 20 minutes. You can't have an early tea break, so you might as well ask questions. Thank you.
Hi, I am Wan Zohainis from the Ministry of Higher Education. I think, as I'm from the Academic Excellence Division from the Department of Higher Education, I think the common questions that we've been asked for many years or many times is about the mismatch. Just now, all the speakers have shared the skills and future job skills. But I think and everybody is saying about, you know, what we should have and how we should be and what we should, but nobody is saying about how to. And of course, the universities, the ministry is, we are actually working very hard in terms of having initiatives of introducing work-based learning and 2U, 2I and apprenticeship, structured internship programs. But I think the most important thing is one of the biggest challenges in the university is to get the buy-in from the industry, for example. And the other one is to not only the buy-in, we want the industry to be involved from day one to co-develop the program. For example, if we're looking at the programs, and not only to co-develop, like you know, we want to customize our graduates or our talents for the industry. Having said that, I'm not saying that we are actually producing graduates for the industry exactly, but we want to produce what we call the change-ready talent. So maybe from our experts here can give some tips or some guidance on how do we get actually more involvement of the industry with the institutions, for example. Thank you.
Sean, would you like to respond to that?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Okay, very, very good. You have asked a very good question. I'll give an example, right? A lot of my members down south, okay, factories, okay, these are not dusty, hot factories. These are all like the high-end semiconductor. These are all aircon rooms. The production lines are not the noisy and dangerous one is all fully automated, right? Employees, yeah, okay, they might be under production, but they are not manual labor. Accommodations all given free, food and stuff all given free. Beginning of the year, we hire 1,000. By October, 20 left. Okay? So it's not mismatch. We do the same thing. When we got them in, we run courses in-house, teaching them how to handle certain machinery, I'm not talking about mechanical machinery. These are all high-tech machinery. And they get their, what they call it, under the Jabatan Pembangunan Kemahiran, right? The certificates and stuff. So they all get a certificate, right? Then they leave, yeah? And the endemic issue here is that maybe a large proportion of them prefers to work as a Grab driver or Food Panda rider. Because why? No boss to shout at him. He is not working in a taboo or looked down upon industry. He freelances. He can get up anytime he wants to. He works whichever hours that he wants to. So I think that is what I call the attitude has to change. You know, it's the truth. And in Penang, same thing. You know, can't get people, right? Because if you were to actually look at my future jobs portal, which is something which the Ministry of Human Resource has put up, and it's quite good. All the years, MOHR has always been hitting out at the industry. They say, oh yeah, you don't pay well, you treat your workers very bad, that's why nobody want to work. Okay, fine. Now, my future jobs, we have a lot of people out of work, okay? But the industry is dying for workers, yeah? We have orders which are backed up since the MCO, the last MCO, now it's opened up. But we don't have enough workers. And in the attempt to match unemployed to the jobs, as you can see from my future jobs, the wanted positions by unemployed people are administrative jobs. Again, it is about wanting to work paperwork, sitting in the office, rather than, you know, being productive using your hands and skills and stuff like that. So that is the issue. And what you're saying is correctly, it's not that the industry is not trying to help. The industry is helping a lot. It's just that somehow, somewhere along the line, the narrative has to change in terms of the attitude of the workforce. Yeah?
Okay, thank you, Sean. I think the point you're making is what you already made earlier, that is attitude and work discipline, yeah? And you feel that that's lacking through the system, yeah? And what do you call that? You also illustrated very, very nicely what you meant by critical thinking. That's also one of the qualities that you say is lacking, and you illustrated it so nicely by simple addition of numbers and going beyond the 4. Yeah, so I think Puan Eunice from the Education Ministry, maybe you can take note of that. Actually, industry is crying out for a change of attitude. This has come on again and again. Maybe I can add an example as well when you talk about attitude. We've been involved with Panjana programs. They are train and place. That means you get promise of a job if that guy gets trained. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can hypothetically tell you roughly what the situation was. Let's say that 20 people trained. And now that they are supposed to be placed. So you got to contact them and make arrangements for the interview so that they can be placed. First round, 6 people are missing, can't contact them. They've just been trained, yeah? And the whole idea is for them to be placed. No, this is true example, yeah? But I might be wrong in some of the numbers, but I've got the example.
No, true. Yeah, true.
6 could not be found after the training, cannot be contacted. all right, something like about 12 or 14 interviews set up. 4 did not turn up. Were contacted but did not turn up. And finally, only 2 got into the job. The others were discounted by the employers. You see, I mean, this is the problem. The problem is that the training has been provided. You can't find those guys. And the motivation to actually start work is so poor that they're not starting. And we're not talking about machine jobs here, we're talking about white-collar jobs. I mean, there's people who have graduated, and now they have to be placed with specific skills in some areas of technology, and this was in particular cybersecurity. And that was the experience. I've actually got that as a case study in a presentation I'm about to do. So these were the numbers that I collected just for one course, and I think it's quite representative. Can I also ask?
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Sorry. I just would like to share a bit on the experience that we have at JTM on the issues of mismatch. We do have TVET talent programs, which is place and train. So we do meet with the company, we collaborate with companies, and we, the company will actually interview the candidates with the right attitudes and also basic skills that they need. And these students are actually SPM leavers, so they come to us and then will be trained for 1 year on the specific program field. And then between that, the company will actually come and customize the course. So as I mentioned just now, if you remember my box slides just now, we have the fixed program that been customized based on the requirement of the industry. So that is one way of doing it, how we reduce the mismatch of the skills. And another one will be under the JPK, Jabatan Pembangunan Kemahiran, which is also under the Ministry of Human Resource, now promoting the modular programs, modular courses, meaning to say that you can actually mix and match skills to become a program. So that is also another program that been conducted by JTM and together with JPK. Thank you.
Thank you. Because we're running short of time. Yeah, David, a quick one. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I just add, if I had one thing to do that would change things, and it would take a while, I'd invest heavily into early years education, because I honestly believe that it's the pre-7-year-olds and it's the influence on them that develops critical thinking. By the time students get to university, it's too late. They're all developed and they won't change so easily. So if I was the Ministry of Education, higher education, I'd put all my money into very early years education, pay the teachers well, get really highly skilled teachers, and get the young kids challenged and thinking critically and problem solving and so on. I think that would make more difference to the society than everything we invest into later education.
Perfect. Thank you, David. And that's right down your alley. And that's what you were saying. Just, if you don't mind, just a minute. Puan Yunis, an answer to you about industry getting more involved with universities and academia. Let me ask you,
not my fault, I didn't do anything. Yeah, only mine is working now.
so they're shutting us off.
Not me, no, I didn't do anything.
Hello? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Let me quickly tell you, one way of getting industry closer to universities is bring industry into the university. Not meet over coffee and discuss curriculums twice a year with career paths. That's one thing. Number 2, reduce career academics. That is very dangerous. That distances industry from academia. Bring industry people into the teaching environment so that they are part and parcel of the process, and you will get results out of it. Taking note of Employability and employment, two different things, but industry in universities works. Just like in the UK right now, the schools, they have brought community into the center of the schools. They feel that schools operate better when there is interaction with the community, not just the children. So the parents also play a part in the school ecosystem. So I saw a model school being built where community activities are taking place in the center of the school. The school is a big circular thing, and there's a community place in there where parents do spend a lot of time. So they communicate a lot with the teachers. They've got the kids running around. So it's the connection with community. And I think universities, they can make a useful connection with industry by also employing a good number of industry people onto their teaching staff. And there are private universities that are practicing that quite healthily, and their employment rates are quite high. Yeah? Okay, we won't keep you waiting anymore. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Doctor. For once, I was wondering whether you are purposely keeping me standing here for the 20 years ago incident that happened. It's just joking. Now, I'm just taking up Mohi's request for asking how, in terms whether there are any tips that's available from the audience, and I thought it would be good for me to share, and also to respond Professor David's call that things should start from K-12. And I think, my name is Gopi, I come from University College Fairview, and we are the youngest university, very, very small university, only one faculty, which is Faculty of Education. Our job is simply to get teachers, train them for one purpose only, not to teach, but to ensure learning is taking place in class. And how do we do about that? How do we go about that is completely different skills from the way my parents were taught, the way I was taught. It was completely different, and I'm grateful to our collaborative partners, the Fairview International Group of Schools, which is a group of IB World Schools. We learned the best practices from there. And the design of the modules was based on those. And we produced these teachers for that school. And today, we are very proud. They have been awarded the top IB in terms of diploma, and we played a small role, Dr. Vincent. And every single teacher that we train are Malaysians. From different industries. They are lawyers, there are engineers, there are doctors, actuarial science, every one of them who doesn't know anything, zero knowledge of teaching. They don't have to go through a 3 years program. Within 1 year, we can transform them. And they create so much changes in the classroom. So much changes. And we want to embrace this philosophy of best practices of International Baccalaureate, not only in the teachers, but also in other faculties. And that's our next vision. How do we bring all these into other faculties? And so there's a transformation in all the universities. So university lecturers have to go through this program, and we are looking at how can we collaborate with universities so that we become, in short, called IBU, IB University. IBU is a nice word in Malay, you know, mother of everything. So hopefully it'll become mother of all universities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would presume that is more a suggestion, yeah? And thank you. Any other questions? One last question, please. Just one.
In Malaysia, we have got this concept, always we talk about Malaysia Boleh, you know. So let me tell you that somehow, and blunt in all these things, that everybody in Malaysia loves everybody. For example, I was blessed to be based in Germany by a Malaysian government, and I could see that attitudes are related to the remuneration or the salary structure. The industry, I handled 37 years, I retired after 37 years of government service, and I can tell you that the story and the narrative is always the same. That was 5 years ago that it cost 2,300 to employ a foreign worker. 2,300, that's the cost. But nobody, you can hire 1,000 people, you have mentioned 1,000 and only 20 will stay. But nobody in Malaysia today will hire Ali Ahmad Mutusami or Achong and even pay 2,000. So attitude comes with actually the reward system. So when I was also in Australia, every JPA scholar will work in a restaurant and they got no attitude. They got no attitude. But no Malaysian top scholar here will work in a restaurant. So the attitude here comes with the reward system. This is a chicken and egg case, basically. So you can have the best education. If you are going to pay after a TVET, after 3 years, a guy has gone through the TVET structure, and you're going to pay him 1.6. You imagine, I will tell you what I earned. I joined the Malaysian government service as an engineer, and I earned 1,003 in 1981. You know what it was? 1,003 in 1981, when a house in Bangsa cost not even 100,000. Today, when I was interviewing people in Maida, where I used to come from, still the salary is 2.3, 2.4, 2.8. So let's get real. That is not the issue of attitudes. My driver in Germany 20 years ago used to earn 7,000 ringgit. The Malaysian government used to pay. And he had no attitude. You pay 7,000 to a Malaysian driver, he will have no attitude. He'll be waiting for you on Sunday even to wash your car. So the issue is, let's fix the reward system first. If you want technical courses to be great, then you cannot have a minimum salary across the board. Then you got to follow the German system. This structure comes with this comes with this. You can't employ a single foreign worker in Germany without, let me put you, without going through hell. What's your certificate? You have to pay for the certification. What is your accreditation? They map it to their local education. So you just start mapping every foreign worker. What skill have you got? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Puan, for your suggestion. I mean, that's why the country is stuck in a middle income trap. It's not going anywhere. There was an attempt to make this a high income country, but of course, it also became a high cost country without the high income coming along. I couldn't help thinking what Dr. Vincent said earlier. He said pivoting, 5 jobs before you reach 32. So you're talking about attitudes. Let me try to translate this. I think pivoting happens here too. Here we call them frogs. So I think 5 political parties skipping before they reach 32, I think. So that's, yeah, that's pivoting, isn't it? Yeah.
They didn't come from my school.
So I think that brings us to an end. The time is up. At the same time, this has been a very interesting conversation. You know, everybody has got their views. I like the fact that there's a huge difference between employment and employability. I have my views too, and thank you so much for your inputs. I think, Sean, you have thrown very good light, and David, your concept of reinventing university is very important, and Junnaina, giving TVET its glamour is also very important, otherwise we will not succeed. And Vincent, you're doing a fantastic job in your school in revolutionizing our kids. Yeah, do more of it, and maybe you can spread it to other schools too. So thank you, everybody, and I apologize if there's been a delay. Thank you so much to everyone for an excellent forum. Thank you.